Hi, and thank you for joining me right here on Where is Google Headed and How Can You Profit from It? Throughout my career, I've been really successful because I know how to skate to where the Google puck is headed, and really how to leverage that to make my clients or myself money. So recognizing that every business is directly impacted by Google, I created this business series of interviews because I want to help you advance your bottom line. And as you know, Google's heavily involved in a bunch of different industries, and they own the river of search. They control the #1 and #2 search engines. And Google's a major player in email, mobile devices, computers, cloud computing, internet access, digital publishing, music, television, mapping, renewable energy, and even your in-home security. So today I'm going to talk with you about social and search and content, really the core of Google's business and how they all interact, so you have an opportunity to know where Google's headed down the road and ultimately make money from that. And that's why Mark Traphagen is with me, the Senior Director of Online Marketing from Stone Temple Consulting. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Todd. Always great to have any conversation with you, but especially one like this where we can hopefully help a lot of your audience to learn more about where Google is heading, how they can anticipate that, how they can learn like you have to skate where the puck is going, as you put it.
Yeah, it's super important. If you know where Google's headed, you can properly position your business in advance of that, and you can benefit from it. So, Mark, in the interest of full disclosure, you do realize that during this interview, I'm gonna challenge you to explain, how the audience can profit from this information. You understand that, right?
Absolutely. There's no other point to it unless Google's just a hobby for you. We're here for business purposes. You and I are. Our clients are. And I'm sure that most of the people watching this video are as well. So we'll try to make this intensely practical, say how this affects your business, where this is going to hit the bottom line in the years to come.
All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to give you the big key areas, and we're going to start right now and connect some of the dots. Mark, where is Google search headed? What do you tell people when you're talking about this?
I think there's so many things that we could say, but I think that if I had to give the #1 takeaway that I'd want people to have in their heads and be thinking about in the years to come is that we are moving from the era in search from to use the phrase that's been used a lot now because somebody at Google used this, is we're moving from the era of strings to things. And that is so fundamentally important to understand. By strings, this comes out of the programming world, the geek, nerdy world of programming. A string in computer coding is simply a set of characters. It could be any set of characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's a string. Todd Hartley is a string. And that's the way that Google understood the world until fairly recently. It looked at collections of characters that happened to occur together. So when Google would look at a page, it would see the words Todd and Hartley occurring together, and it would realize, okay, that's what we call a keyword because it's a phrase, it's a group of words that occur together, and they seem to occur together fairly frequently. But the Google machine had no understanding of who Todd Hartley was or is. When I see those words, and when many of our audience, most of our audience see those words, Todd Hartley, immediately a picture comes to our mind, all kinds of associations, and for every one of us, that's going to be different. So for me, it's Todd Hartley, friend, great guy, fellow cancer fighter, wire buzz, Phoenix, Arizona. Did I get that right? I got the right city.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So and hundreds of other associations that go off. Well, what Google is moving toward, the machine that they are building now, is a machine that will more and more understand that. So when I say things, that's Google calls them entities. It's persons, places, and things in the real world. Not only to understand that Todd Hartley is a thing in the world, that Todd Hartley is a person, that Todd Hartley has relationships to his lovely wife Wendy, and to friends online, and to businesses, and to topics, and to places in the world, and et cetera, to understand those relationships. So that's where it's moving, and where that becomes practical for the audience is that it's not enough anymore to think in terms of the old SEO tricks that used to work. Just getting those strings of words in the right places and manipulating the connections between strings. But more and more, what works in the real world is what works in search, which means real connections, real world relationships that build trust and authority and validity. Though that's the big picture of where it's heading.
And okay, so strings, like you mentioned in the past, have been links and connections and things, because if they're moving away from strings to things, things in a googly sense tend to be centered around content, correct?
Right. Well, content is I don't want to say it's the connector. It's the meat of it. Content is what gives substance to all of those things. So it's important fundamentally to understand the relationships, right? I've met you at conferences, I've met you online. I have certain understandings. I know the name of your company, Wirebuzz. I know you live in Phoenix, Arizona. I know those facts about you. I know those entity connections. But what really makes you important to me, Todd, is the content that you've produced. And content can be all kinds of things, conversations that we've had, the blog posts that you do, the videos that you do, the shows that you do, etc. That puts substance around it. It puts meat on your bones. I not only have a picture now of who you are and who you're related to, but what you're about and where you have authority. Where, when you talk about certain things, and this is what Google is watching and wanting to be able to learn and realize, when Todd Hartley talks about certain things, people's antenna goes up. People say, like, that's important. They share it with other people. They talk about it. They comment about it. People who matter, people who also Google can see have some kind of relational matter. Like you and I are both in generally in the online digital marketing sphere. With Eric Enga and people like that. So if we are talking about you and about your content in particular, then that should have some more weight or importance, as opposed to my wife, who's a scientist. She's talking about your stuff. That's great, but she's not a recognized expert in our field.
Okay, so you and I study this. We watch where the Google bouncing ball is headed, and as Google is demanding more, more information and more content, what I've seen, and I know you've seen something similar, is there are specific types of content that tend to engage better. Let me give an example. Mark does an excellent job, probably a better job than anybody, with sharing his information. We use the term helpful is the new viral. And nobody in text is more helpful than Mark is with his thought leadership, right? He answers questions and gives people guidance and explains big details that are happening. And so that ultimately, and Mark, if I'm off track, you let me know, ultimately affects your ultimate search results. Even when Mark shares other people's content and comments on it, it often appears above the originator's content. Accurate, Mark?
Yeah, that's particularly true. We're talking about Google Plus content in particular. Google Plus is a great playground to experiment with the things that we're talking about because it's built for this. It's built for Google to understand relationships, connections, topical authority, and it builds authority out of that. And you can, I've written articles about this where if you have a powerful profile in Google Plus, you can reshare somebody else's content and outrank them for it in Google search because your profile has higher authority. But maybe more importantly to what you were just bringing out, I want to emphasize that you start out by asking or talking about how there's different kinds of content that get different levels of engagement and different moves. I look at text. As you point out, I do a lot of work in text. I write a lot of articles. I write for a lot of major digital marketing publications, and text to me more and more I think is it's the substance that underlies a lot of other things that you do. It gives credibility. Text is still the place Google's most comfortable with. They know how to do that. They understand that. Now they also know that other media are becoming much more important, and this is where your whole work, Wirebuzz, comes in. Things like like video. Video is where people are spending more and more of their time. It's incredibly engaging. Hence the popularity of YouTube. Hence why YouTube, as you alluded in the beginning, is the second most popular search engine. So they want to be able to understand that more and more. It's why they're investing in things like voice technology, to be able to understand the content of a video without text necessarily accompanying it. But the final thing I'll just say about that is, I think it's good to still have a good underlayment of important text out there. I compare it kind of to, in the old days when I'm old enough that I grew up, that it was a sign of prestige in your house if you had that case in the living room of Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right.
You spent years, and you didn't crack open an Encyclopedia Britannica every day, but there was something about just knowing it was there. That was the Wikipedia of my day. That repository of knowledge, and sitting in your living room, and you need to know about anything, you could go grab that volume. Well, my text content for me is like that. That's my mini Encyclopedia Britannica. It's when people start to look deeper into me, they start to find me online, they realize there's some substance there. They can look at all those articles and say, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I think that's one fundamental value to the content you create.
Okay, so look, that's why I recognize that Google can't really read video. It reads text.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are using video, and I run a video marketing agency because video gets the best results in engagement and in conversion for businesses, and when you add text to the video, then you get the best search results also. So video added to an article page is 53 times more likely to show up on the first page of Google search than any other type of content. That's a way to be engaging and to be using. We're talking today about how you profit from this information.
Mm-hmm.
So let me boil that down real quick. If you have a product or a service, statistics show from Marketing Sherpa that when you add a product video to a product page, it's 75% more likely to end with a conversion than a product page that doesn't have a product video. So use that to help you boost up your bottom line. With that, there's also a lot of information that people need to know about where Google's headed with author rank and authorship. Mark, give us a quick overview. And when I say quick overview, what I'm really looking for you to share the Google logic behind it, about how Google is tying individuals to their content, and that content and signals around that content to its search results. Can you kind of paint the picture for us?
Absolutely. That's a great topic to bring up, Todd, because it is one of the clearest places where we can see this, what I spoke about earlier, this move from strings to things becoming solid and real in the Google world. With the advent of the social revolution several years ago in online web, we moved into this era when everybody's a publisher, everybody's a media outlet, or can be. It used to be that you had to have all the geeky knowledge to build your own website, and it was difficult to do. Now anybody can have a social profile, anybody can publish into the world, anybody can produce video, all these different content levels. So what's happening is that we're moving beyond the era when just sites had authority to Google, and Google realizes it's going to get left behind if it's dependent on links only, because links are primarily site dependent, right? Links come from sites. You got to own a site, build a site to create links or to get links. So that's still a very powerful thing for Google, but there's this whole world out there now of real people who matter. And Google's also understanding that there are people who, in any vertical, any business vertical, let's concentrate on that since we're talking about making money here, there inevitably are people who stand out and who get trusted in those verticals, people who just are looked at as the authorities. And as Matt Cutts, who's Google's primary public spokesperson in the search world, has said so often in the last year and a half. He said, if Danny Sullivan, that's a name that means something to us in my world. Danny's the publisher of Search Engine Land and Marketing Land, runs the SMX conferences, He says, you know, if Danny Sullivan posts something on some obscure website that Google normally wouldn't rate very high or rank, but it's Danny Sullivan wrote something there. He said, and I'm searching for something relevant to that. I says, it makes sense that I'd want to know about that content because I trust Danny Sullivan. It doesn't matter at that point that it's, you know, Joe's Screen Door Incorporated website. So all that to say that the authorship program is the first baby steps toward Google trying to get down the building blocks of how do we figure out who's connected to what content, how do we figure out what content then matters and consistently matters in a topical area. So if, you know, Todd Hartley does content about video marketing constantly, and when he does that, it matters to people to whom that should matter to, then that's something we should know about. And it makes sense that eventually, when people are searching for things related to video marketing, if Todd Hartley is highly trusted in that, that we would want to elevate his content. Now, let me just say quickly that this is a long-term investment, but I think it's a good investment. By long-term, I mean that Google is not yet there to where they have the confidence in this to be able to say, like, we're just going to go ahead and charge in here, and this is going to be a major factor in the search results.
Now, but Mark,
definitely where the, you know,
go on, definitely.
Well, just saying it's the direction that they're heading. They've confirmed that numerous times. You know, I had a conversation with Matt Cutts just at SMX Advanced. We were talking about this. You know, that they're committed to this, but it's more difficult than people think, and they want to get it right. One of my little quotes that I've often said, you know, borrowing from the old Orson Welles wine commercials from years ago, is, you know, Google will serve no search factor before its time. They are, you know, they are intensely patient. They will test and test for years to get down what really matters before they start turning up the knobs. But here's the thing, you know, getting back to you know, where you do profit from where Google is going. If you know they're moving in a direction, even if it's not presently a strong ranking factor, it pays to be invested in that now, because the people who are connected, the people who are showing Google, this is my content, this is where I write, or this is where I do videos, or whatever the content that I'm doing, this, you know, look at Google, watch what happens. Look at the quality of the sites that I publish on. Look at, you know, how much that gets shared, how many comments it gets, how many links it gets when I write on these topics. You're building that database with Google that when the day comes when they do begin to turn up those knobs, you're ahead of the competition. You've already got this trust history with Google that you've built up over years.
And that's such an important way. If you recognize what Mark just said and you start preparing for it, you can profit from that information. You know, it's time to claim your digital territory. It's time to you know, set up your your authorship, and to make sure that you claim that territory in your business niche. Early settlers claim property very cheap. Give you an example. When Google Plus rolled out, that was the time to claim your digital territory on Google Plus. And in just the last 12 months, my breast cancer campaign that we run, and we run a variety of campaigns, our campaigns over the last year have generated 1.1 million followers. Our breast cancer campaign alone generated 700,000 followers in a 12-month period. Now,
those are Google Plus followers, right?
Those are Google Plus followers.
Yeah, where nobody follows anything, right?
Right. But when something is new, jump in. If you know Google's using it and Google owns the river of search, and they're going to win at the end of the day, use that as a strategic opportunity to position your company so you can start claiming your digital territory. Make sense, Mark?
Absolutely. You know, just like I was, you know, why do I have less hair than you see in my profile photos now? Because I've been tearing it out for 3 years, trying to get this across to brands. I mean, you know, brands keep saying the old, you know, sawhorse of, like, you say Google Plus, and they say, like, oh, you know, we're busy on Facebook, and, you know, our customers aren't on Google Plus.
But that's a sign of a really bad marketer. And that's a sign of a business person that doesn't recognize emerging opportunities and then take advantage of it.
Yes, absolutely. Because, you know, you said it just so well just a moment ago. I mean, how rarely does Google open up a door into Google and say, like, come on in and play in our playground? If you're a marketer, I understand and I respect very much in the social world. There are a lot of people that are concerned about privacy and they don't want Google to know everything that they're doing. But if you're a marketer, you want to Google to know. If you're a good marketer, if you're doing reputable stuff, if you're really doing that real world stuff that builds value, you're producing quality products that really help people. You're looking to serve people. You're looking to make the world better. If you're doing those things, you want Google to know about that. Why would you not come in where they're opening the door and say like, hey Google, here's my business. Here's who I am. Here's the content that I produce. Here's where it's connected. Here's all the social networks I'm on. I mean, why would you not do that?
Right. Right. Okay. So Mark and I are gonna lay out another way that you can profit from this information right now. Mark just got back from presenting at SMX Advanced. I covered Google I/O last week, and if you add up the latest information out of SMX Advanced and Google I/O, you can see that Google, for the foreseeable future, their primary focus is on 3 areas. Mobile. The reason is Google's positioning itself for mobile devices because it looks at mobile devices to be the primary and dominant way that we engage around the internet. Now, they are looking at your device as being the primary instead of your computer. So start thinking about that. If Google's headed that way, you should be. The second thing they're doing is site speed. Site speed is vital because if we're going to be engaging here as the primary, your site speed needs to be able to download very quickly and load on a site in 2 to 3 seconds instead of 8 to 12 seconds. And so Google's going to put a priority on sites that load faster. And the third thing, we mentioned it earlier, is content. So those all fit together. If you're engaging mobily, then you need to be engaging quickly, and people don't read on their mobile devices. They watch video content. Start preparing your business and your opportunities to take advantage of site speed, mobile engagement, and what type of content people engage the best with on mobile devices. What do you think about that, Mark?
I think it's bang on, and it's exactly what I was hearing at SMX Advanced. Particularly in Matt Kutz's as they call it there, the U&A, where they have a question and answer section, but it's all about the questions from the audience, and those were definitely things that he was emphasizing. But here's what I want to emphasize, and again from SMX Advanced, I covered for Search Engine Land the opening session, which was their annual SMX periodic table of search factors. And they had 3 very smart people up there who were giving their prognostication, their crystal ball about where things seem to be moving in search factors. But the overwhelming takeaway from that was user experience. Google don't think about
user experience.
Yes, but overall, like, don't think about these things when Todd shares those things as just okay. These are the latest arbitrary rules that Google's coming up with. They're not arbitrary rules. Google is doing some of the best research out there on what actually makes a good user experience, again, especially as we move into that mobile age. And one of the things Matt Cutts said at SMX Advanced is that Google, their data now shows that before 2014 is out, the majority of searches on Google will be done on mobile devices. So they're saying to sites, this is not just good for Google, it's what actually is better for your prospects, better for your customers. It's caring about how long it takes your site to load, caring about how that content looks on a smaller screen. Those sorts of things are not just like adjusting for Google. They're going to get you better conversions. They're going to keep people on your site longer. They're going to make people want to come back to you.
Mark, I recently had a conversation with a friend who's a billionaire, and I was sitting over or lunch with him, and I said, how do billionaires think differently about business than millionaire or thousandaires? And he said, it's an interesting question. I look at market signals like people look at stoplights. So if I see green, and what Mark and I are talking about are Google market signals, right? Mobile engagement, because Google's already seeing it. Speed, the certain type of content. What you're getting are market signals. And if Google's giving you a green light in those areas, you should be going through that intersection, okay, and be forging ahead. If you start to see, he said to me, if you see a yellow, you kind of go through the motions of business cautiously, but if you see red, you pull your chips off the table. And now that I started to think about that, the way that he phrased it, when I see market signals, I move in them and I try to do it aggressively if I've got a green light. And that's what brought me in the first place to Google+. And when I started to look at content, because I've been a content creator since 1999, as I start to see what content performs the best, I got the biggest market signal of my career, which was video. So I moved our company into the video space when we launched in 2010. And so always be thinking about those kind of elements and how you can take advantage of big signals that come from one of the biggest and most prosperous companies in the world.
Todd, I cannot underscore enough how important what you just said is. Too many people in the search marketing world, I'm going to do a little rant here. There's too many people that when Google does something, when Google sends out one of those signals that you just said, to them it's negative. It's, oh, Google's changing things. Oh, Google's attacking my business. Google's taking me down. You've got to retrain yourself to begin to look. Remember, Google's intent is not to destroy your business. Google's intent is for people, when they use Google, to have the best possible user experience. Why? Because then they'll come back and use Google again, and they get exposed to the ads, and that's where they make their money. But here's the thing. I'm going to recommend an article by a friend of mine on the Moz blog, moz.com, find from about a week ago, and we'll get the link and post it in the event later. But my friend Russ Jones wrote a fantastic article. I don't know the exact title, but it was about Panda, the Panda algorithm update at Google, and the how that affected press release sites. Now,
I read that article.
Oh, great! If you're not in the press release world, you might have seen that title and skipped by it, but please read it, because what Russ did so brilliantly there was he showed how Google's Panda, you can either take it negative, like, oh, Panda's like this thing we should fear and it's out to attack our websites, or you can take it as Google is showing us through behavior modification, they're teaching us these are the things that matter for your business in the future. And with Panda, that's particularly having non-thin content, having content that matters. User experience is a part of that. We've been talking about that, but also that your content is not just, you're not just putting out the same thing that everybody else is saying. Yeah, there it is. You're good. You found it. You know how to use search. So just a great article to take as a model for how you should approach these things. When Google changes something, say to yourself, what is that green light signal that the billionaires understand that I need to be modifying toward, because this is where the future is going?
Yeah, it's so cool. All right, I love everything about that. I've been watching social analytics for some time on press releases, and so that article was really interesting. If you guys read one article that tells you about really what happened at SMX Advanced, I think you should read Mark Traphagen's article about the gosh, I've referenced it so many times now I can't remember it, but it is the Q&A, right, Mark? Is that the one?
Well, you talking about the one about the periodic table of search ranking factors, or the one
That's
about the
one. Please go back and read it, you guys. It's all business market signals. Start looking at it and position yourself properly. In the closing moments, Mark, how can people profit from this information? We've touched on it, so if you need to reiterate things, feel free to do that.
I think the biggest profit center here is being future-oriented. There's a lot out there in sociological studies and historical studies that show the societies that have prospered and have lasted, the empires that lasted the longest, the societies, the cultures that lasted the longest, lasted while they had a future orientation. You can get, in search marketing, you can get locked into a present orientation. You can get so obsessed with, what's going to make me rank in the next 48 hours? What's going to push this keyword up? What's going to do that? That you're missing the bigger picture. And the things that Todd and I have been sharing with you today, they might sound more nebulous. They might sound more, they're not something that if you do those things, you're not going to rank higher tomorrow. But if you're building a brand, if you're building something that you want to last for years to come and to prosper and to be bringing employment to many others and bringing prosperity to you, you've got to get into this future-oriented mindset. You've got to be paying attention to where, in particular we're talking about today, where Google is going, and get out of the negative mindset of that Google's against you, Google's just trying to destroy you, they're trying to knock you down. I'm not saying that Google cares about you either, but that positive mindset of, okay, Google sees the data better than anybody else. If they're trying to, whether it's by negative things of penalties or positive things of what they seem to be rewarding, if they're trying to modify our behavior in a certain direction, it's because they see that creates the kind of user experience that not only benefits Google, but that makes people happier with your website, your business, makes them want to do business with you, want to trust you, want to recommend you to others. So that would be my main, profit takeaway is get that future orientation mindset and determine that you are going to be a business that, as we started out saying, is skating to where the puck is going, not where you see it right in front of you now.
Yeah, really good point. Mark, thank you for sharing that. My big takeaways is if you haven't already, get yourself and your company and your thought leaders working on authorship so you can develop your author rank. That's one of the most important things you could start with, and it's a long-term process, and it really takes smart content development to help advance that whole overall author rank. So be very strategic in how you do it. And in closing, think about your mobile site and what that navigation is like. Make a very simple user interface. Most companies we consult with bog down the user interface because they can't think in simple buckets because we get too close to our own product or service. So start boiling things down, because the way people engage here is going to be the way that they're going to engage in the future, and the way you're going to be generating a lot of your internet-related revenue. And to be successful, you don't have to be the smartest person in your industry. Being the smartest person is a birth blessing, and really it only happens to a few of us. But you have to be the most resourceful, right? We choose to be resourceful if we choose to be great. So I encourage you, choose to be great, and if you stay committed to being the most resourceful and you're eager to learn from others, you will know where Google's headed. You will recognize the green lights, the yellow, and the red, and at the end of the day, you'll learn how to profit from it. So on behalf of Mark Traphagen with Stone Temple Consulting, my name's Todd Hartley, and I'll look forward to talking with you right here about where Google's headed and, of course, how you can profit from it. Mark, thanks so much for joining me.
Todd, always a joy, anytime.